What's up, everyone? Welcome back to NFL Week 2. This is the Shark Lab breakdown where we bring the Shark Lab himself, Adam Burns, author of Winning the $1 Million Game, on board to talk about math-based plays for NFL Week 2 designed to attack giant tournaments like the Millie Maker on DraftKings. What's going on, Burns?
Not much. Going to be a pretty good week. We got some pretty good looking games here. There's a couple that stand out right away. So excited for this week.
One nice thing about NFL Week 2 is, able to narrow down the playing field a little bit in terms of usages, and we finally got to see the teams play, and we get an idea of how some of the new teams are going to look, how some of those usages are going to go. So I love Week 2. My player pool for this week is really, really much thinner than it was in Week 1, which I like. But this ain't about me. This is about the Shark Lab, and what the math says are some of the best plays for NFL Week 2. So let's jump right into it, and let's talk about the quarterback position and give us the overall philosophy at the quarterback position, what wins tournaments, and then we'll get into some of the quarterbacks from this week that look like they could be that guy.
Yeah, generally we look at favorites. Those are the those are the types of quarterbacks that are putting up the most points on a given week in fantasy. We Idealistically, we want favorites from high scoring games, so our high over under games. Yeah, it didn't really bode well in week 1 when we had an underdog come in and play with Tua, and then he blew up in week 1. So, but that's okay. The math is still there, and the math is based on historics. So, um, it's is it going to happen where underdogs are going to come into play and they win the Millie Maker? Of course, they're good. It's going to happen, but more often than not, the favorites are there.
There's a big underdog this week that is going to be super popular that I love in a high total game, and that's Trevor Lawrence. So, Burns, let's start right with that game because that is the game of the week, I think, and one of the most important games to target in your DFS lineups. And listen, we got Trevor Lawrence. He's a home dog, and I think that should adjust the calculus even just a little bit. But nonetheless, Trevor Lawrence is going to be super popular. Home dog, not a big underdog either, 3.5 points. So it is a close game. That game carries a 51-point total. So are you going to avoid Lawrence and just focus on Mahomes here? Or is this a rule breaker spot, being that it's a home underdog, but it's kind of a close spread?
Yeah, I mean, the spread is really nice. This game, we saw it last week. We had the highest game with Miami and the Chargers, and it turned out to be the underdog that took it and was in the winning Millie Maker lineup. But this week, I'm not going to go that route. I'm not going to try to chase. I do like T-Law. I like him a lot. But in my MMEs, he's going to be much lower owned than I'll have with Mahomes, especially if Kelsey does come back in this game. I believe Kelsey could have a beast mode game type coming back, and Mahomes just feeding him, 12, 15 targets.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. Mahomes clearly lacking Kelsey there in week 1, and you could tell he's just not comfortable with those wide receivers. So I do like Trevor Lawrence. So I'm not going to let that, scare me off of him or anything, because I think the Jaguars could cover the spread here. And just like I thought with Tua last week, I bet Miami. I thought they could win the game. And I think that's where you kind of break from, or I would break from that Vegas thing, is where I think that team maybe shouldn't be necessarily an underdog. And so you could kind of wipe it out, especially early in the season. Keep in mind that Vegas is going to be a little less right earlier in the season than they will be as the season presses on. So, all right. So we talked about Mahomes, absolutely top stack of the week, or one of them for sure. If you're fading Trevor Lawrence, you're probably fading the highest owned quarterback on this entire slate. So do so at your own peril or at your own benefit, because fading the chalk is usually good. But let's go and talk about the rest of the QB position. Joe Burrow had a horrible week last week. Now we get him again, favored, road favorite At Baltimore, can he bounce back? Do you pay attention to like what happened last week and how he looked? Or, hey, the numbers say 24.75 point game total for this, just play it.
Actually, I think he's at home this week. I think Baltimore travels.
No, that's right. Baltimore at the Bengals. My apology.
I actually think that's going to be better for Joe Burrow in this week. Baltimore, they're always that fearless defense. They're very feared by the opponents, but typically that hasn't been the case since last year. They didn't really have that great of a defense last year in the secondary until later in the season. I think this game could actually shoot out. It could have the potential to shoot out here this week. I do like Joe Burrow a lot this week. Baltimore isn't that great against the quarterback position, so I think Burrow and company could actually see a good game here. It's kind of hard having Burrow going against two divisional opponents right off the bat, week to week here, 1 and 2. So we'll see how that all shakes out for him. I mean, it was atrocious. Outside of the Giants game this past weekend, this was probably one of the worst games on the slate in terms of score. It was like what happened, but weather played a big part of it, I think, up in Cleveland with Cincinnati going up there. But Cincinnati's always had a trouble with Cleveland. Last year they had troubles, so that could have been the precursor for Burrow. But Burrow, he's had good games against Baltimore in the past, and I could see him having another good game here this week.
Do you have interest in the other side of this game in Lamar Jackson? Obviously, underdog. Didn't have a great week 1, but didn't need to do much.
Right. Yeah, I'm less inclined to have Lamar in my lineups. He's one of the highest salaried quarterback. He'll be one of the lower owned quarterbacks. He's actually been able to have some significant games where he's underowned in the field, and he just explodes. He did that multiple times last year. I could actually see it here in this game. But Cincinnati is very good against the quarterback position. They're very good against the wide receivers. So it could be a Mark Andrews game here in this game. I know there's some love going around the DFS stratosphere for Zay Flowers after his week 1. I have it too. I really like him. I think he's going to be a great play week to week. But I'm going to temper my expectations a little bit this week because Cincinnati is such a good defense in the secondary. Doesn't mean I won't have them in my lineups, but I'm just not going to have a massive amount of them in my lineups.
I do loves me some Zay. Yeah, so love Zay, but as far as Joe Burrow goes, I think, or as far as Lamar Jackson goes, for me, I think, it's going to be a ping pong situation. I said it last week. I didn't think Lamar was going to have a good game against a team that can't score. This is a game stack for me. I always want Lamar in game stacks. I don't like a ton of game stacks. Game stacking did win in NFL Week 1, but it was a thin stack, QB +1, bring back of Eckler. So you needed effectively Tua, Hill, and ideally Eckler in a bring back in Week 1. If I'm playing Lamar, I do want to bring back of at least someone from the Bengals. I think that game needs to be super competitive, but if it is, it could push Lamar up. And like I said, I love Flowers and Mark Andrews on that side of the ball. I think go back to Joe Burrow as well. But I'm not avoiding one side or the other of this one. I would like to see Joe Burrow, though, perform and not suck to really get excited about him. Burns, there's a couple other games I think to get excited about in week 2. So I want to talk to you about another big one. And again, this really follows your rule a little bit. And I kind of do like the don't play the dog one in this one. But last year, Detroit versus Seattle was almost the game of the year. For DFS purposes, that was the game of the entire season. I think they put up over 80 total points in that one. You needed a rare quintuple stack. Quint stack. That's not even a word. That's not even a term. No one knows what that is. What's a quint stack, Geek? That's where you have 5 players from the same game. And that's what you needed to win in NFL Week 4 last season when Seattle and the Lions went bananas. I'm assuming you're in love with Jared Goff this week.
Oh yeah, this is man. If history repeats itself on this game, because this is part two, so in the same vicinity and everything. Last year, Detroit games that were in Detroit, they just blew up last year. It was like every game that was in Detroit, it almost was like a cheat code. Just play that game and play it heavy. Well, we could see another game just like it from last year. Um, that happens this year, this week. And so, this game's very ripe for blowing up on both sides. I could see Gino and company coming in and having a good game as well. I could, if you wanted a game stack, a game on both sides, this could be the game because of the fact that it blew up last year so unexpectedly. But we could see it expectedly happen again this year. So
there's so many pieces to like here. There's just on both sides of the football, there's so many angles that really stand out. So first of all, again, this game already blew up last season. We could look for more of the same. Seattle, particularly bad against tight ends. It gives us an interesting play on Sam Laporta. We'll talk about the tight end position in a little bit, but Sam Laporta becomes really kind of interesting coming off of 5 targets, and there's no one else really playing the position, particularly for the Lions, right? We have Amon-Ra, just a beast in the same effective part of the field that Puka Nakua went bananas on last week, 15 targets, 10 receptions, and looked like Cooper Kupp out there. And that's where Amon-Ra operates in the middle of the field. And then, of course, you have I love secondary pieces in this style of game, Burns. So like the Josh Reynolds angle, which Bobby Wow was pushing last week on the Millie Maker on the Showdown breakdown, and he did wind up in the nuts. We could get another decent game from Jay Rizzles. Josh Reynolds, he gets a nickname because he was in the nuts. And then the negative side on the Detroit side for me being just like the running game could possibly suck away some of those touchdowns, and we could see that. And then on the flip side, DK Metcalf, great spot, but really interesting. Tyler Lockett coming off the dud, unowned. You can get Tyler Lockett for almost no ownership this week. So a lot of angles from both sides of this game. Kenny Walker on the Seattle side, I'm obsessed with. So what about Gino, though? Are you going to stick to the rule? I'm going to keep putting this against you, Burns. You stick to the rule. Are you going to fade Gino in favor of Goff in this spot?
not here. This is let's see. This is actually one, two. This is the second highest game total on the entire slate. But I actually don't mind Gino coming in here on the road at 1 p.m. He did it last year. He had 37 plus DK points last year on the road in the same situation. I don't mind it here. I think he actually does pretty well this game. So I'll be having both quarterbacks in my player pool this week.
Little rule breaking. On that note, reminder, Burns is the author of Winning the $1 Million Game, How to Take Down the DraftKings Millie Maker Tournament. It is a spectacular book. You can get it on Amazon. Link in the description below. Support Burns and the work he does. Maybe we'll get a fresh book. If we support this book, we'll get some updates next year. Gotta show the man some credit. And what I want to do for the viewers, I'm going to give away a book, one of Burns's books, to one of the viewers. I want you guys to post in the comments section what your favorite QB wide receiver stack is for NFL Week 2. If you nail it, however many of you nail it, because it could be more than one, I will pick one and we will send you a copy of Winning the $1 Million Game. So put your favorite QB wide receiver stack, not your favorite, which one is going to win the Millie Maker. We will check the Millie Maker winner. Last week it was Tua to Hill. It wasn't that hard. Could have gotten it. We will choose one and you will get a copy of the book, Winning the $1 Million Game. And also as a reminder, while you're in there typing in that QB stack, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this style of content. If you don't, then you don't have to press the dislike button. just go away. That's cool too.
Yeah, and since week 1 is already past us, we've expanded our research even more into week 1 of the 2023, and we've expanded it from just having the winning Millie Maker lineup. We expanded it to the top 20 lineups. So even more data is going to be presenting itself over the course of the season. So that's a lot of lineups. That's 20 times 18 weeks. So you're looking at quite a few lineups there. To sift through all that data, so it should be a pretty good book into the future.
There we go. And of course, on the week over week basis, you can check out the Shark Lab article, which goes over Burns your favorite math based plays across all the position books groups every single week, and that is available, of course, at DFS Army on DFSArmy.com. So make sure you're regularly checking out DFS Army. Look for that Shark Lab article that Burns is putting out every day. All right, a couple other QBs I want to talk about here that I'm interested in. I want to get your thoughts on them. Josh Allen coming off the dud at home, massive game team total. Not necessarily what appears to be a super competitive game, but it could be, but it doesn't appear to be that on paper. But do you think Allen bounces back here? Allen has never been that quarterback that absolutely needs a competitive game to smash. There's countless examples of him putting up 30 plus in blowout type situations. So could this be one of those times where he gets his revenge, coming off a brutal defensive matchup against the Jets and now a much easier defensive matchup against the Raiders?
Yeah, you said it right there. A defensive matchup with the Raiders versus the Jets is significantly a downgrade in defensive matchup. The Jets are very difficult defense to go up against, especially in the Meadowlands. That's their home part. That's their home field. Josh Allen's has come back. He's coming into Buffalo now. The Las Vegas Raiders are traveling. This is going to be a difficult game for Garoppolo and company. I can see Josh Allen and Diggs styling in this game. I could also see Cook styling in this game as their RB. It's a very good game for Cook this week. He's going up against a very porous defensive front on the Las Vegas Raiders, as well as I could see some action going into maybe a rookie tight end, Dalton Kincaid here potentially. He may unseat Dawson Knox for the season in this game. You never know. So, but don't forget the WR2 in this game could actually have a better game than the WR1 in Gabe Davis.
Explain.
Generally in our research, we've seen where WR2s have actually had really good games with their quarterback, and because of the fact that WR1s are typically very pricey, and we see that here in Stephon Diggs's case. He's high priced wide receiver, whereas Gabe Davis, he's potentially in the sixes on DraftKings. So you could potentially do a lot more with Gabe Davis in your lineups construction. So I wouldn't leave him out. That's for sure.
The perpetually overpriced Gabe Davis, whose salary is not indicative of his average returns. Gabe Davis, Terry McLaurin, there's like a group of players out there whose salary is just not indicative of what their average returns are. And I think it's because they'll just pop off for an insane game once in a while. That's like Gabe Davis gets you 3 touchdowns or only 2 receptions. Like it is night and day with him. The ultimate GPP only play. All right, let's talk about some other potential quarterbacks on this slate that you think could be part of a nuts lineup. One interesting one for me is Anthony Richardson. I really want to get your take on him because that game has a low total. His team has a low total as well. I'm trying to pull it up here. So, yeah, 19-point team total is terrible, right? Like that is below the level where we normally want to target a quarterback. But Anthony Richardson, I think he might be the real deal. And I'm telling you, I want to get on board that train. I want to be on the train because jumping on the bandwagon late never feels good. If you're riding the bandwagon, as the bandwagon goes up, we could be at the start of something special with Anthony Richardson is what I'm saying. This could be that guy.
Yeah.
I want to be on that train early.
Yeah, he seems like he's going to be the Fields 2.0 type, where he's rushing all the time for touchdowns and etc. But he's throwing very seldomly for large yardages totals. So, only reason why I'm not heavy on him this week, yeah, he did have a pretty good game last week against Jacksonville. Where he had a 20, just about 22 DraftKings points in and around there in week one. So his favorite target was Michael Pittman. I could actually see him going right back to that well in this
Yeah.
game. Um, but in this one, if he does make my player pool, it's going to be very small amount. I don't don't really like him going up against Houston. Houston against quarterbacks they've been really good the last 2 years. This year including. Um, they shut down Lamar Jackson last weekend. So I I'm not really going to be that high on him simply because of the fact that Houston does shut down the quarterback position. They're pretty stingy against quarterbacks. And they're pretty stingy against the wide receiving core. So they could just, you know, have a field day here. So I don't know. It'll be an interesting game for sure.
Yeah, I'm getting on board that. Like I said, I want to be on the bandwagon before it takes off from the station, and then you get left behind. You don't want to be left behind. And you're right. Pittman, 11 targets last week, was a massive factor um, in in that game. And I think I'm stacking him too. I don't think you get to take down a Millie Maker with just the running. There always has to be a player that's dragged along with them in order for them to produce enough to win us the big contest. So the Richardson price is inflated a little bit, but fuck it, I'm on board. I'm getting on. I'm getting on that train.
Sounds
Um,
good.
you mentioned Herbert during our little break. Tell me about Herbert. He's on the road at Tennessee. The Titans are known for giving up bleeding points to opposing QBs and wide receivers. Can we get right back on the bandwagon? We might not have Eckler this week, not sure, but we might not have Eckler playing, which probably, weirdly, leads to more throwing and more production from the QB position.
Yeah, if Eckler's out, this could be a load up on Herbert week, simply because he's not. Joshua Kelly is not a guy that can carry the load like Eckler can from the RB position. He's almost probably going to be game schemed out of this. And actually, I could see a lot of targets going towards Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, and don't forget Gerald Everett in this game if Eckler is actually out.
I'm
Um,
forgetting Everett. Fuck that guy.
Gerald Everett is actually in a good position here. The Tennessee Titans are not very good against the tight ends, as well as they're not very good against the wide receiving cores in addition. And they're 28th against the quarterback position. So it's a very small sample size on that, but Tennessee was very porous against quarterbacks last season. They're very porous. They were one of the worst defenses against wide receivers last year as well. So I could see Mike Evans and Keenan Allen having a field day in this game with
Mike
Eckler
Williams
out.
to correct that one, but yes.
Yeah, Mike Williams and then Keenan Allen to pair with Justin Herbert in this one. So especially if Eckler's out, this might even be a 25% ownership
Ooh,
in Herbert here, if not more. So I could see just that being my own ownership in him. I could see it happening.
that's bold. I love it.
I was last week, I was 25-30% in him. So I
That did
had that
not work
much.
out well.
No, and Eckler ate it all up. But even with that ownership, you still cash pretty well in all my single entries with him as my quarterback. So
Listen, that's a good sign. I'm trying to look and see if I can find an update on Eckler this morning. He didn't practice yesterday. It was quote personal reasons. Practice field attended to a personal matter. No context yet on his availability. So I do think that's a really critical part of the entire NFL Week 2 slate. If Eckler doesn't play, you've got the Josh Kelly, bargain. But of course, also I think the main winner is Herbert and the pass catchers on the Chargers. Any other QBs this week that we need to be keeping our eye on? Daniel Jones, maybe for a bounce back, favorite on the road, 22-point team total. We've seen Daniel Jones put up 30 plus on multiple occasions, and maybe Brock Purdy coming in with that giant team total, even though, I don't know.
Yeah, I like Danny Dimes overall for this season. He may get it done in this week, going all the way out to Arizona um, in a 425 game. But the Giants' offense looked really bad. But Brian Daboll could scheme very well for an Arizona team that they're not going to be that good this year. My only thing is I wonder if Arizona's going to be able to keep up with them. That's all.
Their offense looks horrible in Arizona. Honestly, you could play Giants defense this week. They're a little pricey, but Josh Dobbs was putrid. It was covered up by the fact that the Commanders were pretty bad too, and so it was just like this stink fest going on in just a stink fest going on in Washington last week that covered up the fact of how bad Arizona's offense was, which was like weirdly worse. We saw some of the worst offensive performances I've ever seen in all of my years of watching football. Like what the Giants did was probably the worst offensive performance ever in the history of the NFL. Like they actually broke many records for ineptitude in that one game alone. They effectively had the worst game any NFL team has ever had, which is a feat, and it's something you should, as a Giants fan, be proud of. Your team's breaking records, bro.
And I lost a bet in the process to a member of DFS Army. So I had to change my avatar for a week. So
That great. I love that goes on. And a reminder again, hit that like button if you're enjoying this content. This was supposed to be behind the DFS Army paywall. We have kept it open to the public because, hey, the show last week got a ton of views and incredible feedback, positive feedback. So I need to see it every single week right here in the comments if we're going to keep this going, because this really is some premium content that we're throwing out there. And if you're not subscribed to DFS Army, there is a ton of premium content, including the home of the Proptimizer, which is the ultimate tool for pick'em games and prop games, prize picks and sleeper. We compare sportsbook odds with the odds on these games, and of course against the DFS Army projection model. It is gold, and we've got Will Lynn and Sniper just spitting plays in the Discord all throughout the day. Will Lynn is a savant. He's up all night. He's spitting, like everything is well thought through. So make sure you check out DFS Army VIP, or you could check out the Pick'em sub if you enjoy the Pick'em games. Home of the Proptimizer, which is the ultimate tool for sleeper, price picks, and all Pick'em games.
And it doesn't hurt that Sharp app has John Statsational Alessia over there, who is probably one of the top DFS players in the world and also one of the top bettors in the world as well. So you can't beat that.
Yeah, and John's the one doing the formulas and kind of driving the driving force behind a lot of these tools, especially the sports betting tools. So check that out. And of course, the Sharp app, you can check out all of the tools that we have going on for sports betting across both the props and the games themselves. So make sure to check that out, of course. Now, Burns, let's move on and talk about the running back position for NFL Week 2. And does the Shark Lab point to any of these running backs? Because I think running back is where the money's going to be made this week. I'm focused in on just a few guys that are core for me, but I want to see, what is the Shark Lab saying, the numbers say about running back for NFL Week 2?
Yeah, so we have a few games that are going to pop off the page here. We generally want, with our running backs, we generally want a lot of volume. And from a betting lines game, we like to see our betting line favorites that are home and away underdogs. So we try to gravitate our player pool towards that. We're looking at 24-point implied team total for our favorites, and then anything above 19 points on the implied team total for our underdogs.
It's a big range this week.
Yeah. So a couple of games that are sticking out to me here. Obviously, the Detroit-Seattle game. I actually think on the Detroit side, this one could be very interesting from a running back position. Jahmyr Gibbs, his role is going to continue to evolve in this offense. He's shown that he can be a good pass catching back in week 1 against Kansas City, who is a stronger defense against the run than Seattle is. So I could actually see Jahmyr Gibbs doing some damage here this week. Of course, my research isn't fully complete on that. I know David Montgomery got some good run in this
Quite a lot of run.
offense. Yeah,
Yeah.
in week one. So that's gonna that's gonna be interesting moving forward. How that's gonna lead towards Jahmyr Gibbs's output as we move forward over the course of the season. Another game here that I really like is the Buffalo Las Vegas game with Cook. I think Cook saw a really good run in this offense against the Jets, even though the Jets shut them down. They shut a lot of things down in this game on Monday night. It was a very difficult game for the Buffalo Bills.
The most impressive thing about Jimmy Cook was 6 targets, 4 receptions. Love to
Yeah.
see that. You know, he got the 12 carries as well, which is fine. That's what you get when you're on the Bills. Like, they usually don't run the football the 25 times in a game. That's how the Bills operate.
Yeah,
But
and Singletary's not there, so
they,
that was a big thing last year. Singletary was there, so they had to split.
they have Harris there, who's definitely playing more of that grinded out role. I think where you're going to win with Jimmy Cook is through the air.
Yeah,
That's how you win. That's the win condition. He scores via the pass. You're in the nuts. 6,100, a little pricey for James Cook, but I think he's absolutely got to be in the mix this week.
for sure. Another game that I like is the Tampa Bay game going up against Chicago. Chicago's pretty porous defensive front against the run. I could see Rashad White actually, coming back off a really poor performance fantasy wise against Minnesota. It's his first game of the year, so probably should have had a little bit less of him in hindsight.
He
But
got me good.
yeah, it's okay. I mean, he got me good too. I was pretty high on him. He was in my single entries. But I think he actually at home. I think this is a good game for him at home. He's the favorite at home. I could see him having a good game here. Good game for him. Is he 5.3K this week or is he lower? Or is he
Yeah, he's down there. He's 5.5,
5.5? So
5.5K,
same as
and
last week.
a spectacular low bargain. If you actually look at what he did on the field, 17 carries, 2 targets, that is a full volume workload for a running back. And that's the kind of workload that generally leads to average scores of 12 to 14 points with the spikes. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be scary for a lot of people. That ownership might even go down from what it was in NFL week 1. It's going to be scary. But
Yeah, and DFS, right? We got to be greedy when we fear things. We got to be fearful when we're greedy. So in this situation, he had a dud where we thought he was going to be good, and I could see people being fearful this week. It's a very similar tune to the quarterbacks like Herbert. He didn't really have that exceptional game that we thought he could have had against Miami. So that's why I go right back to the well with it.
Nowhere else in the DFS discussion world will you hear Warren Buffett philosophies applied to the only with Burns, only with the Shark Lab
That's what
are
we
we
do here.
applying Warren Buffett level financial advice to the DFS game. I love it. Listen, keep it coming, man. Give me some Charlie Munger stuff next.
It's
I
what
want
we
it
do
all.
here.
I want it all.
The more people can treat their players like stocks, the better they'll be in a profitability standpoint over the course of a given season. So treat your players and your defenses like stocks.
I think I need to
Don't
start.
fall in love with them.
I think I need to start treating my stocks like players, and then I can finally turn around my mediocre stock market performance. Switch it up. Treat it like DFS. I don't know. We've gone off the rails here. What are we even doing? Oh, yeah, running backs. We're talking about running backs for
A
NFL Week 2.
couple others that might people might shy away from. He didn't really have the performance that I was expecting him to have in week 1, especially because Cleveland's defense was they're very porous. They're very bad against the run. But Joe Mixon,
Oh,
what I saw in this game, this is one of the only few games I watched this past weekend. what I saw was the weather played a significant factor in this game. It was the first game these guys played. Mixon, him and Burrow together, they weren't together in the preseason at all, because Burrow got hurt in practice. This was basically their first game back. So I could see Mixon. uh, He had 10.5 DraftKings points last week. At 6.5K, I know it's a little pricey for his production that he's had thus far, but he could actually have a week this week, where we could see him, mid 20s could be a possibility for him. Another game that I see on the slate where I actually like the Vegas betting lines on it. I'm not too high on the actual fact that they're going up against a really tough defense in itself. But Dallas at home, Tony Pollard basically gets all the volume. Um, there I could see Tony Pollard having a decent game here. Whether or not he's going to pay off his salary is another question.
Oh man, it's so tough to
So
want to pay up for a running back going up against the Jets, Burns.
I know it's 7.5K. That means he's got to have, he's got to be at let's see, 38 DraftKings points. So that could be something that is not possible against the Jets.
You
So
need a 30,
because
31.
yeah, so there's a running back that's a couple $100 higher than him that's in a better position. But you know what? Um, he could potentially have a good game. I'm not saying go all out here. I say, sub 5% on your field ownership could be something that could be
Yeah.
good this week. I don't know.
He didn't make my mix. I am not down with the TP.
Yeah,
This
that
week.
game for me is still in red. So red is still editing.
Yeah, let's get away from playing people against the Jets as a general rule of thumb. You see green, just no. Don't play against them. And even worse, with the Jets can't score, that gives you even less reason to want to fucks with the Jets opponents outside of the defense. I'm going to throw I'll give you a couple of names that are popping for me. You tell me. Well, number one, I think Kenny Walker. I'm going right back to him with Seattle. He got a ton of work. It wasn't like other people were being used at running back for the Seahawks. It was just Kenny Walker. He didn't have the greatest of games, but it was just him. So the usage was there. I think you go right back to it. No worries.
Yeah,
AJ Dillon for me is a lock button if he starts. That's an
he will.
all-in situation.
He'll start here. I mean, if Aaron Jones is hobbled at all or he's out for the week, I completely agree with you on the Dylan call. That's a really good spot there for your running backs going into Atlanta. Atlanta's not very good against the running back position. So even though we did, the Shark Lab did call them out in the Shark Chronicles, the Atlanta defense last week as being one of the better plays on the slate for defense. This week I'm not going there. Green Bay is a better offense. The only reason why we went with Atlanta last week was because Bryce Young and
Yeah, that was a
company were
rookie.
going in. Yep.
Attack the rookies. We're going to be attacking rookies every week with our defenses if we can. I think that's just going to be a given.
And I don't think we're going to see that this week. Jordan Love showed that he was pretty competent at home this past weekend with Chicago in town. So I'm not going with Atlanta's defense this week.
I want to hammer through a couple more of these. Maybe let's go on a quick pace as I want to kind of get through everything in our allocated time frame. But Travis Etienne smashed last week, got all the work. 5 targets, 5 receptions. He's in this game of the week situation. Any apprehension there?
No, I think you load up on him.
Yeah, he seems to be in one of the better spots for me. And that's about it. I'm also I love that you brought up Mixon because I think that's like your Millie Maker play. I don't think anybody's going to want to be on Mixon after last week and what happened. And I think that's going to be a real low owned spot. I'm not fucking with it outside of true GPPs because we were reminded that Mixon does come out of the game a little bit when the going gets rough. for Cincinnati at times. They like to bring in the other guys on like certain passing downs, and I was hoping he would see more work. But we have to dismiss last week's game a little bit. It was ugly. They were down 24-3. It was just a blowout, but he still got some targets, got some work. So I'm willing to give him another chance. And we know that Mixon every once in a while puts up a had to have it type of a number where you cannot even discuss the nuts without him. Unfortunately, he's got a wide range of outcomes, wider than I normally like to see.
Plus, I just like Mixon on the whole for the season. I think he could actually do really well. He's got a kind of a young guy behind him, but I think is Chase Brown behind him. But Mixon goes off here, and you don't have him, and he's sub 10% ownership. Somebody's going to be winning the Millie Maker with him in it.
All right, let's move on to the tight end position. Oh, what about wide receiver, Kev? We're skipping it. We're going straight to tight end. And I want to know, give me a couple of mathematical-based picks at the tight end position. Tight end is where you win it or lose it. We might have even talked about Hayden Hurst last week on this show. I'm confident that we did. And he wound up being like the only tight end that did any good. But
yeah, we did talk about him last week. He was an underdog going into Atlanta. Bryce Young being a rookie quarterback, the drop down passes to your tight end or your short over the middle type passes are what rookie quarterbacks typically generally try to do early on in the season, and then they open it up as the season goes along. But I actually see Bryce Young's going to go to Hayden Hurst quite a bit in this offense moving forward. But in games this weekend, I could see there are a few spots that I see, and I'm waiting on the Kelsey news, so that could change some things right now.
Assume Kelsey is going to play. So let's go into it, assuming Kelsey is playing this week. And I don't think I need to tell you or you need to even share with us that Kelsey is the smash play if he plays.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jacksonville is not a great defense against the tight end position, and then you have the best tight end in the NFL going up against you. This is what we've been waiting for. We were hoping that we would have had it last Thursday, when Detroit made their way out to Arrowhead, but he was out that game, and the offense just didn't look well. They weren't gelling, not like a normal Mahomes offense. When you got Kelsey in there, this is going to be a humming offense. And I could see 12, 15 targets, 10 catches, could even potentially cross the century mark. So you're going to get the +3 bonus there. And you could potentially even see 1 to 2 touchdowns in this game from Kelsey. So that'll get you there. That'll get you the 5X that you need to win a tournament if he's in. But he did have a good game against Jacksonville last year as well. So
he's in a smash spot. You saw that the Chiefs need him. That's the big thing. We learned that the Chiefs need him. Burns, real brief, as I want to try to keep this within an hour, this show, because we're gonna oversaturate, and we'll keep the rest for the Shark Lab article. But give me 2 more tight ends this week that really pop from a metrics point of view, where all the factors come together.
Yeah, the Seattle-Detroit game on the Detroit side, I could see all factors are aligning with the stars in this game. Laporta, he saw some really good targets from Goff in the game against the Kansas City Chiefs. I could see even more targets being filtered to him. He's got Amon-Ra there and Josh Reynolds, and he's basically the third guy in that offense from a targets perspective. So I could see more targets going towards him in this game. And then depending on what we get for Eckler's situation this week on a health standpoint, if he's out, tight end in this game is Gerald Everett.
No. And I'm going to put a stop to this Everett bullshit, guys. Burns, you and everybody else need to figure this out. Everett is in a timeshare with fucking Don Parham. It is, I need tight ends that don't have a timeshare.
Well, if you think it's Parham too, I mean, he could actually do it.
I hate Gerald Everett so much. You don't even understand. He's becoming Derek Carr level like hatred. He's not the starter. He only has good games when Don Parham is out.
But he's only in play if Eckler's out.
Yeah, I could see that though. With Eckler out, they need another target. I'm kidding, of course. Everett does have the occasional good game. It's just funny, like I think it's Parham. No, I just think it's Parham who's the guy there. There's a couple other names though. So you mentioned before we got on the air the Dallas tight end Turd Ferguson.
Yeah, he had 7 targets in week 1 against the Giants. The Jets are going down to Dallas this week. They're not as good against tight ends as they are against the wide receivers. Don't get me wrong, the Jets are very good defense, but this seems to be one of their weak spots. With Ferguson getting 7 targets in week 1, he could become the guy that Dak Prescott looks at early and often in this game. So you could see 7+ targets again in this game. And if he catches, they say they get in the red zone and he catches one, he falls into the end zone. That at 3.3K on DraftKings, that's a tournament winner right there.
I'll throw a name out for you here to put your eyes onto. Greg Dulcich is going to be, it looks like, out this week. Adam Troutman did pretty good without Dulcich last week for the Broncos, and now he's going to probably get the full run. 5 for 5 last week, 3K. Good matchup. No one's playing him. 0 ownership. Adam Troutman.
What's his price? Is he
3,200? As cheap as
3,200?
it's not Stoneman, but actually no, 3K. So he's not Stoneman, but he's about as cheap as it gets for an certainly for a viable coming off of 5 targets tight end going up against the team that's not very good against tight ends with Washington. So it's just, what is tight end? I'm either playing Kelsey the way my approach for week 2 is it's either Kelsey, like play the stud, or just find a way to cheap out on it and hope that you get your 12 points and don't allow that to be the thing that burns you.
Yeah, absolutely. Troutman, lo and behold, he was actually in a few of my Millie Maker lineups last week. So
There we go.
did
Great
it
minds.
did it produce a lot of room salary wise? Absolutely. Did it produce a winning score? No, but
Didn't hurt you.
I think he was in one of the top 20 lineups in the Millie Maker last weekend. So it's could actually happen where he's developing a lot of chemistry with Russ. So I can see it for sure.
Yeah. He could have actually helped you because the 9 points he got was not that bad for a tight end last week. I saw an Isaiah Likely lineup, winning a tournament too. So you could have gotten there as long as you go cheap enough at a position. You're not really asking for that much in order for it to come together and really work out. I'm trying to look through the position group, see if anybody else really pops. There's a couple other names that I had some medium level interest in. Of course, Evan Ingram as part of that Jacksonville game, even though I think he's a little not priced correctly to his production. In the context of a game stack, I don't really care as much about that, Burns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Probably not like a standalone cash game play or anything.
Right.
Cole Kmet got a bunch of targets last week as well. So a couple other names there.
Cole Kmet's going to make my article this week.
Wow.
He's an underdog going down. He's going into Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is okay against the tight ends, but they're not great. So I could actually see, similar to Ferguson, if he could cross the end zone, in the red zone, and then Kmet made my article this week. So
there it is. Again, nailed it. I like that. All right, let's talk defense. And, this is a tale of 2 salary levels, I guess, on defense this week. The way I look at it, there are spectacular on DraftKings. high-priced defenses, multiple ones that look really great. Starting with, the Cowboys. Oh my God, smash spot against Zach Wilson, right? So that would be like the chalky one that sucks in all of the ownership. But then right up top here, in the same zone, listen, Denver at home against Washington, sure, right? Like Washington's offense did not look great with Sam Howell. Giants at Arizona. Arizona looked horrific on offense last week.
Yep,
Right?
absolutely.
You got a couple other spots here. Like I would say Buffalo at home is usually an interesting spot anyway. So the pay up options look tasty. They look tasty.
Yeah. As you go down, you got the Texans. They put up 8 points, DraftKings points last week against Baltimore. And
3,600 though for the Texans. This is my issue. Can I really pay 3,600 when the shiny Dallas Cowboys are right there, $400 more? Like how much below the Dallas Meridian, the prime Dallas Meridian, do I need to be? Prime Dallas Meridian?
well, it depends on if Dallas is going to be owned, right?
They
We
will
saw
be
it
on.
last week. We saw it last week with the Washington Commanders. I know they were in the winning Millie Maker lineup, and because they were 2,800, this is basically why. But they could have not been in it because the 1-to-1 salary defense that was actually a better play in the grand scheme of things actually outscored them 15-11 was the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers was in my article last week. They weren't my Millie Maker special defense, but they were in my article. And they did have a very good defensive
Did you
performance.
have Arizona in your article?
I did not, but I did switch a lot of my ownership off of Commanders down to the Cardinals. Even had the Cardinals at I think 1 or 2% ownership, which is probably my lineup, in a lot of my single entries. So I did have them, and they went off for 19 DraftKings points. I just
That's the
felt
perfect example. Cheaper or, about the same price as the chalk defense last week, but also an obviously good play.
right, but I don't see them in a great. I don't see them in a great spot this week. I think Danny Dimes is he's a different level quarterback than Sam Howell. Sam Howell's just I was all week. I was like, no, he's not going to get it done. And Danny
There was
Dimes, Danny Dimes is just a different level quarterback. And then you got to deal with Saquon Barkley. But Danny Dimes did throw quite a few interceptions against the Dallas Cowboys, but Arizona is not the Dallas Cowboys
I think
defense.
it's a question of did the Giants are the Giants that bad offensively, or was Dallas that good defensively, or was it some mix of a little bit of both? Like, Giants aren't definitely not as bad as they looked. Dallas is definitely not as good as they looked. It was also week one. Offense is a little out of sync. We saw a lot of these quarterbacks just out of sync. Justin Fields looked putrid out there. A lot of Joe Burrow looked putrid week one. A lot of the quarterback position, Josh Allen looked terrible. So many of them look bad. And I talked about it before the season started. It's hard to judge with your eyes because these guys got barely any practice time in. That's the new rules of the NFL. It takes a couple of weeks of real football action for them to get in the game because they don't allow padded practice very much at all anymore. And they just don't get enough playing
Right.
time and practice time now in the preseason with all the crazy rules they have and the reduced preseason games to really get into sync ahead of the start of the season. I think that has something to do with it. So I think these offenses will get better as they
Right.
sync up with each other.
Yeah, we haven't actually gotten into the defenses on a research standpoint that generally happens overnight tonight into tomorrow, and then when the article is released late Friday evening or into the Saturday morning, it's more solidified for us. We run all the numbers and stuff. So the defense, obviously, Cowboys up top. You got the Giants up top. Bills, those are all great spots. Even Houston with rookie quarterback coming in, a running quarterback, you shut him down. You shut down his running capabilities. He could fold, and he gets put into bad situations where he makes where he throws interceptions. That could happen in this game.
I would flip side that one as well, Burns, and the Colts defense is just as viable here
Yeah.
going up against, CJ Stroud. Not that Stroud looked good or bad or anything in week 1, but he's a rookie. He will make mistakes. He will throw interceptions. So, any of these anytime a team is going up against a rookie or a young quarterback or anything like that, just play them.
Yeah, for sure.
Broncos at home. Sure. Broncos are a little more reasonably priced here.
3,900.
No, it's so tough. They're not reasonably priced, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to play anybody in that zone when the Jets are staring you in the face, going up against a Dallas team that puts up 30s on defense. They just do. They do it. They do it multiple times a season. I rode Dallas defense to a fantasy championship that I did not deserve last year. I was like, how am I winning these weeks? Oh, my kicker and my defense put up 40. Well, you don't see that every day. So you got to respect those guys. Real quick, Burns, let's jump over to wide receiver. We skipped it. I don't know how much time we've had left in the hour, but Burns only gives me an hour for these shows. So I'm trying to get as much in as I can. So, and a reminder before we finish up, remember, give me your favorite wide receiver, QB wide receiver stack. Drop it in the comment section. If you hit that nuts combo, we'll come back next week. We'll pick one, announce the winner. You'll get a free copy of Burns's book, Winning the $1 Million Game. You're going to want that. It is a reference. I literally open that when I'm doing my lineup building. I go back, I reference the pages. It is really, really important. Every page gives you sort of a structure for what to look for at each position group. So with that being said, and real quick, Burns, give me a couple of wide receivers at the top end and middle end of the range that are flag plants for you and the Shark Lab in week 2.
Yeah, so last week our flag plant was Tyreek Hill. He exploded. Highest wide receiver on the slate at 47.5 points. This week we're going to flag plant on Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think in this game blew up last year. He did very well in the game, as well as Hawkinson in this week. So I could see him outscoring even Jamar Chase, who's $100 more than him. I do like Jamar this week. I think he could have a really good game against Baltimore's defense. Another flag plant potentially could be a little bit lower down in this wide receiver salary base and we saw him have some really good run early on in that Indianapolis game is Calvin Ridley. I think it's the Ridley show in this offense.
The Riddler.
We saw basically Christian Kirk got game schemed out of this game. It was a wow moment. Like, wow, he really did get game schemed out. And it was, Zay Jones and Ridley. Zay Jones came on later in that game, and it was Ridley in the beginning. As we get down further, Gabe Davis, I talked about him earlier with the Buffalo game in the quarterback section.
Whoa, this was an unexpected flag plant, Burns.
Yeah, Gabe Davis could actually see he's the WR2 in this offense. Stefan Diggs is the highest he's going to be the highest salaried wide receiver on the slate at 8K. Gabe Davis, you're going to save a lot of money by going down to Gabe Davis. He is 5,800 on DraftKings this week. That is a significant savings off of Diggs this week.
Still too expensive for Gabe Davis, in my opinion.
It is, but he's had that. We've seen it in the past where he can actually explode a game here, a game there. And Las Vegas Raiders are not that good of a defensive unit in the secondary. I know a lot of people like Zay Flowers. I like him a lot this year. He could actually have some run in this game, but I'm not probably going to have a significant ownership stake in him where I could say he's going to be my flag plant. And then the other flag plant, if you wanted to go into the 4K range, could be Zay Jones again this week in that high totaled game with Kansas City. So obviously with all these plays, these are all projections. We're basically determining based off of historical past performances. and how we project them forward. So when you look at your research and your process, please make sure that you have a solidified process in place for yourself, that you are determining your own plays, and utilizing the knowledge and information that you have received in this podcast as well. So
I love it. I love it, Burns. All right, let's wrap it up there. Remember to check out Burns, Bobby Wow, Bob, myself every week, Friday night, 5:30 Eastern on Tournament Tactics right here live on the DFS Army YouTube channel. You can watch it live, ask questions, get answers in real time. You love the Tournament Tactics. Everybody loves the Tournament Tactics show. Make sure to check that out. If you want to get signed up at DFS Army, make sure to do it right now. Go DFSArmy.com. Click on the link in the description below. Promo code GEEK gets you 10% off. VIP gets access to the Proptimizer, as well as all of the regular DFS content across all sports. Just the Proptimizer alone is worth the price of admission. Will Lynn and Sniper spit and plays nonstop in the Discord. Of course, when you sign up as a VIP at DFS Army, you get access to me, Burns, the whole crew. We're in the Discord talking about the games, talking about everything every single week. It is a community where we all really work hard to help each other get wins, get better. That's how DFS Army functions. We are not like other sites, so make sure you get signed up there right away. Burns, I appreciate you. Let's keep an eye out. Remember, we're going to be watching those comments, and if you can nail the nuts QB wide receiver selection, we're going to pick out one of those people, and we'll call you out in next week's show as the winner, and we'll get you a free copy of Burns' book, Winning the $1 Million Game. Of course, if you want to just support Burns, buy that book. Go to Amazon.com right now. Link in the description below. Pick up Winning the $1 Million Game as well. We'll crush it. We'll see you guys at the top of the leaderboards. Deuces.